welcome to the Genius Talk podcast. I'm host Atul Raj from the bestevenmarketer.com, and today we have Matthew Edgar with us. Matthew, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on.
Awesome. So, for our listeners who don't know you, can you tell them who you are and what do you do?
You bet. So my name is Matthew Edgar. I am the co-founder and a partner at Elementive, and we are a consulting firm that specializes in the technical side of SEO and the technical side of AI search. So we work with companies of all sizes, from very small to very large, helping them figure out the really complicated technical problems that hold back their website's performance and is preventing them from being able to rank and show up in search results and show up in AI responses. So we dig in and work with companies, typically working with dev teams and marketing departments, really helping them understand those technical components and what they really need to do to improve their website's structure, architecture, and code base.
Okay, so what led you to co-found Elementive?
Yeah, so I've been doing this work for a couple decades at this point, and my business partner now used to be a client of mine early on. And as I was doing work with her at the company she was at, she was the vice president of marketing there. She was kind of getting to a point about 10 years ago where she was ready to make a change. I was kind of getting to the point of I'd been doing the solo consulting work, wanted to do something a little bit different and expand. So we joined forces at the end of 2014 and decided to found Elementive, really with the mindset of let's bring both of our talents together. We both have a very analytical, technical approach to solving problems, figuring things out, and let's bring those two together and let's try to help as many clients as we can. And work with a lot of clients. I'd say the other thing that really has always been important to us is that we wanted to make it clear that we're approaching this as a consulting firm, very education first, very flexible, very with the mindset of, hey, we're just here to help you. We're not here to sell you a big package or try to have a huge retainer or something. We're here to come in, help you dig into a problem and figure that out. And sometimes that's a small project and sometimes that's a big project, and either are great. And so even from the very early days, that's always been a big part of our mindset and approach to running this company.
Yeah, like caring about people who are going to help. I think that's the most important thing in business.
Yeah. And sadly, right, there's a lot of, I think, marketing agencies that they get a little too into the flashy side of things and, maybe selling the bright, shiny object instead of always selling, what somebody needs and, the actual solution that somebody truly, needs to solve the things that they're facing right now.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I have few friends of mine, okay, who do the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you share a recent case study of yours?
Yeah. So we've been doing a lot recently with AI search and helping companies figure out how is AI changing SEO? What does that look like? What do we need to do? There's a lot of questions. There's not a lot of answers right now around what AI looks like. And just when you think you have answers, ChatGPT, Google, they're going to change something and then it's all different. Maybe not quite that extreme, but I mean, it's changing rapidly. So there's a lot of experimentation. So with a number of clients recently, we've been helping them conduct a series of experiments of, hey, what do you actually need to do? How does this actually work? And how is showing up in ChatGPT may be different than showing up in Google. And so some of those experiments have been things like looking at rendering problems. So we know that ChatGPT is unable to load JavaScript. They don't actually build out pages and load pages in the same way that Google does. Well, how big of a problem is that? And so for some companies, that's a pretty big problem. They're very dependent on complex JavaScript and the way things are built and the way things are put together. It's very extensive. Google can maybe handle that. ChatGPT can't. So what do we need to do that? Now, completely rewriting your website's code, rebuilding how everything works, that's not an option. But how do we do some smaller steps toward that? And so that's been experimenting with things like, okay, can we introduce some version of pre-rendering where we do some of the rendering for the bot on their behalf? Can we do that in big ways? Can we do that in small ways? Can we affect some kind of change? We've also been experimenting with, can we rewrite the HTML a little bit where maybe it's a little easier for ChatGPT to pick it up? It doesn't seem like their bots are as forgiving as Google's bots of certain types of not as well put together HTML. And so by doing those experiments of How do we rework rendering? How do we rework HTML structure? How do we, another experiment has been internal linking. As we go through these experiments, it's then watching very clearly and saying, okay, what do we see? Do we see that there's more mentions in a sample set of prompts? Do we see that ChatGPT or Perplexity are coming to the website and crawling the website more often? Do we see that maybe we get more direct traffic, implying that maybe we get mentions that aren't leading to direct traffic coming into the website? And there's been a mixture. It's a mixture based on the site, based on what exactly we're testing. But we're starting to see that certain things seem like they're a little more reliable for improving AI performance. And that's been a lot of experiments that we've been doing this year to help people figure that out so they can realign their tactics, their strategies, particularly as we head into holiday season and into the new year. People need to know, okay, what investments actually make sense? Where do I actually need to go? I need to plan 6 months out. So what's actually going to be a worthwhile investment? And by helping companies conduct those experiments, dig in, look at things, we've been able to help them figure out, okay, here's generally some of the better things it seems like make sense to invest in. Here's some of the things that generally seem like maybe they don't make sense to invest in at all. We didn't really see it affect any change. And helping just differentiate those two things has been a huge win for a lot of our clients.
Okay, so I'm curious. Okay, so today my assistant was doing something on Perplexity, and on the result, my podcast came. Okay, my name came, but my company, the bestemailmarketer.com. So when we search, give me like who is the best email marketer, then my name didn't come. Okay, so what should we do in that case?
Yeah. So there's a few things to keep in mind with that. As we think about, let's start kind of the basics of how is Perplexity actually responding to that prompt? Like, what are they actually looking for? So when you ask a question, what are they doing? So we're used to how Google looks at things. Google goes and they look at their index and they then pull from their index what they think is the most relevant, most key answer to the question that you've asked. And while there's going to be some variation within how Google pulls out an index, some personalization, some localization, generally speaking, we're going to get the same thing. Here's the best, whatever it is, or here's, the product that works for this, or here's the service that works for that, or here's this piece of information. Google's going to pull that out of their index. That's not what Perplexity is doing. That's not what ChatGPT is doing. What their systems are based around is way more hyper personalized and way more customized in the response. So when you ask a question of ChatGPT or Perplexity, they're pulling from probably some kind of knowledge base that they have that would be somewhat equivalent to Google's index, a collection of search pages they have. But they're also pulling out of the LLM, the large language model. And so the large language model is a pattern based system. And so that pattern based system is just making guesses about what word to respond. And so when I ask for the best this, best that, it's making guesses around all the things that it thinks it needs to respond. But the other big thing that it's factoring in, and the thing that makes it so different than Google, is that it's also bringing in all the past history that it has about you, all the past information about the other things that you've asked about. So if it knows that, hey, you've asked a lot about this kind of person, or you're interested in this kind of thing, it's bringing that in. And so it puts all of that in to what's called the context window, and then it's responding from there. And what that means is that the response you get, it's going to be very different than the response I get. It's going to be very different than the response anybody else gets. So that makes it hard to know, is it not answering with your name in that response because of something about how it personalized it? Or is it because it's not in its knowledge base? That's really hard to tease out, those two things. With Google, it's way easier to know, okay, yeah, this is in the index. It should respond. We have clear ranking factors. With AI search, there's not clear ranking factors because it's all about what the large language model decides using the information from your previous chats, maybe using some of the knowledge base information to make some kind of guess about what words to say in the response. Now, there are things you can do to maybe boost your chances of showing up in there. One thing that is very reliable, seems to be pretty dependable to do, is basically doing PR, right? Is getting out there, making sure that lots of companies, are talking about you, lots of websites are talking about you, Reddit forums are talking about you, Wikipedia is talking about you. The more you can do that, the more you're increasing the chances, not so much that you're going to rank. It's not a ranking factor in the way that we think about that with Google. It's that you're increasing your chances that you're influencing the patterns in the large language model so that it makes a better prediction involving your name than something else. That's where PR kind of comes into play. The other thing that I've seen some people experimenting with, I think the the jury's still out on this one, if it's actually a reliable method or not, is that you can kind of encourage people to conduct certain types of prompts. So you can ask your audience, hey, be sure to ask this of ChatGPT, or ask ChatGPT about me, or ask Perplexity about me, or about my podcast, or about, something related to your business. That may have some kind of influence. What it seems like it influences more so is the personalizations. That way, more people are personalized and biased toward you. So that way, you
Mhm.
actually show up more. So that was a lot. Did I answer your question in there? Did that make sense?
Yeah, you make
Okay,
sense.
cool.
Okay, so who are your ideal clients? Could you help? Can you be more specific?
Yeah, we work with a wide range of clients, everything from kind of smaller startups who are just getting started, all the way up to large Fortune 500 companies, big name brands. So everything from super small to enterprise, and we take on a lot of variety that way. I'd say the common link between all of our clients and the kinds of people we're working with is they tend to have more complex websites, because once you have a more complex website, the technical factors start to matter more. You can get away with some technical problems on a 10-page website that doesn't have really any features or functionality. And those technical problems probably aren't going to hurt you that much so long as they aren't so critical. But as soon as you have a directory added in, or you have a complicated search filtering system, or you have a product gallery, or you have videos added, or whatever it is, and you just start adding more and more and more pages to the site, or you add more and more functionality to the site, it becomes more complex. And that's where even like a super small company that's just starting out, maybe they have a directory of like local professionals or something that you can hire. It might be a small company running that, might be a small startup, but they still have a site that's thousands or hundreds of thousands of pages potentially. We need to think about what are the complexities within that. Same goes for an e-commerce site. Whether you're a big or small company, if you have an e-commerce site, you're selling some number of products. You have, let's say, even a couple hundred products. All of a sudden you have a couple hundred products. Well, that's category pages, that's filter pages, that's search pages. There's a lot of things that come alongside that. Makes it a lot more complex, and a lot more things to think about. With our clients, they really do run the spectrum. Number of e-commerce clients, a lot of people who run directories, um, also just bigger informational sites as well, that they have a sort of resource base websites, and just have lots and lots of pages. And with lots and lots of pages, you have lots and lots of questions about structure, about architecture, about how bots from search engines are going to work through that.
Okay. So you read a lot of books, right?
Yes.
So from all the books you have read, which one is your favorite and which book has the most impact on your life?
Yeah. The one that I always come back to that I recommend, and there's a number of books, but one that I think is, pretty, I think it is pretty influential on me in terms of how to think about things and break things down and explain things technically. It's a book from, I believe, the late 90s. I'm pretty sure the author's name is Petzold, I think is how you pronounce it. I've never actually seen it out loud, but the book's title is Code. And so in this book, he walks through and explains how a computer works from start to finish, and breaks it down in very simple, basic terms, but also manages to explain some really complicated subjects. I like the way that that works. I like the way that that flows. And the way that he describes things, without it strikes that right balance between being simple and to the point and explaining complicated subjects, but without losing the nuance and without losing the complexity and without sounding patronizing, which I think sometimes it's very easy to kind of come across sounding patronizing when you're trying to dumb things down and simplify things. That's not how you want to approach things. That doesn't help anybody. So I like that one. Don Norman's books always kind of top the list. I think he's the one who really kind of kickstarted the idea that user experience matters, right? I mean, he worked at Apple for the longest time. His book, Design of Everyday Things, just is incredibly influential. I think a lot of people assume it's a design book. It's not necessarily a design book. It's definitely one that is more about how you think about building complex systems, and how you build things in a way that works for people. And I think that's something that sometimes gets a little lost in SEO, particularly the technical side of SEO, is that, yeah, it's about building for bots. It's about the technology, but you got to think about people. You got to think about what people are actually doing on here. So those are a couple of the books that I would definitely throw out top of the list that come to mind as probably being more influential, and certainly ones I'd recommend.
Okay. So looking back when you started, okay, So, what's the one lesson you will tell yourself if you have to restart today?
Think the biggest lesson I've learned is the importance of being very flexible in how I approach things. I think early on I had a mindset of I'm going to come in and I'm going to tell the client this is what you need and this is how you should do things. And that is so not how it should work. You can't come in and expect a client to do something. And I think I've developed a much greater appreciation for that 25 years into consulting with clients than I did early on. And now I tend to take a much more bottom up approach of let me just come in, let me understand who this client is, let me understand who this company is, let me understand how they work, let me understand how the site works, and really have a deep appreciation for how unique everybody is and how unique every website is. Because it is, possible to kind of assume, this is what I did early on. I assumed, oh, I'm working with a site in, a travel space. So they're going to have the same considerations, the same problems, the same expectations as anybody else in the travel space. So I know what that is. No, I don't, because every site, no matter if it's in the same industry doing the same thing, it's all different. It's all unique. And so as I talk to people who are just starting out, if I could go back in time and talk to myself starting out, I would definitely point to take a more bottom up approach with this. Don't come in and try and say this is how things should be. Really start from the ground and say, okay, what's this look like? And let's kind of build something up from here for what that needs to look like that's really right for that client, that website, that particular situation, and really appreciating the uniqueness of it.
So, what personality trait would you attribute majority of your success to?
I'm sorry, say that again. Cut out. I would say probably the personality trait that I have benefited most from is I am very practical. I break things down. I just kind of take a very practical viewpoint on things. I don't get really hung up on theory. I don't get really hung up on sort of an ideal state. It's like let's just kind of take a more pragmatic approach to looking at things. Just kind of work the problem from there. My business partner has very similar personality in that way. We're both very practical, very analytical, and that I think has afforded us the opportunity to just be very straightforward, logical in how we are approaching problems, breaking it down, not getting too caught up in maybe some of the more idyllic notions of SEO. Just let's take it for what it is and work from there.
Okay, so for our listeners who want to know more about you and want to connect with you, where can they go?
Yeah, so my website is matthewedgar.net. I have tons of articles on there, videos. So if you want more from me, that's a great resource. I'm also very active on LinkedIn, so I'm always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn. Post a lot of things there. Always happy to take messages and connect on there as well.
Awesome, Matthew. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. It was really great chatting with you.
It's been great talking with you as well. Thank you again for having me on.
Awesome, brother. Bye.